Hello everybody, and thank you for joining for this video for today. And I thought today I'll do something slightly different, a little bit different to some of the other videos that you might have seen. I thought it would be good to do something fairly short and sharp, just thinking about some key words in the Bible, or in fact one key word that is used in a number of different ways. And when I speak, I don't usually use a lot of Greek or Hebrew or things, but just to emphasize this point today, I want to get back in this particular word, back to the very original language, the Greek, and to think about exactly what this word means and how it can be used in different ways and how we can apply that to our lives, how important it is to understand exactly what the Bible is saying in certain circumstances and in certain ways. And the word that I want us to think about for a little bit today is the word rest, to pause, to take a break, to stop, to rest. And the word that prompted this is found in the book of Psalms. In fact, it's found in the book of Psalms 71 times, along with being mentioned only just 2 or 3 times in the rest of the Bible. But it's a very particular word, it's a special word. And just to emphasize this, I'm going to read from Psalm chapter 3. Psalm 3 is a psalm of David. It's written when he fled from his son Absalom. And like many of the psalms, it follows a familiar pattern where David begins to tell us what is going wrong and that how bad things are. And then he changes tact very quickly and tells us how good God is and how good things are and how good things are going to be. Let me explain. Psalms 3 says, "Lord, how many are my foes? How many rise up against me? Many are saying of me, God will not deliver him. But you, Lord, are a shield around me, my glory, the one who lifts my head high. I call out to the Lord, and he answers me from his holy mountain. I lie down and sleep, I wake again, because the Lord sustains me. I will not fear, though tens of thousands assail me on every side. Arise, Lord, deliver me, my God. Strike all my enemies on the jaw, break the teeth of the wicked. For the Lord comes deliverance. May your blessing be on your people." And like many of the Psalms, we get these two contrasting thought processes. The first couple of verses of saying everything is going wrong and there's no hope, and then suddenly this change, this C movement, this U-turn of going from everything is terrible to everything is good. And in the gap, in this case, in the gap between the end of verse 2 and the start of verse 3, there is a word. And the word isn't printed in many of our modern translations. In my Bible, in the NIV, in this particular one, there's a little symbol, a little letter B in this case. And if you look down the bottom of the page, there's a footnote that denotes that little B that's there is where there used to be a word. And that word is Selah. And that is a word that we don't know exactly what it means. It's taken from the original language, but we believe that Selah is a musical term. It means to pause, to just take a beat, to reflect on what we've just heard, to think for a moment about that previous mindset, that previous bit of music, that previous bit of language, take a breath, and then move on to the next thought. And that's why there's this sudden change from one thought process to the next, because in between there's this Selah moment where the psalmist encourages us to pause. Yes, things are going very bad. Yes, everything looks impossible, but pause and remember that things are in God's hand, and then go forward in the knowledge of what he's about to do. And in our lives, these Selah moments are so important, because we all live lives where things feel like they're going wrong at times, where things seem to be getting on top of us, when even the smallest thing can seem to be huge. But if we have a little pause, if we take a beat, if we have a moment where we remember that God is still with us, if we think, well, what has just happened? What's in my thoughts? and then move on, going forward in the knowledge that God is with us. These Selah moments can become very, very important. A moment in a busy day, a moment in life where we rest just for a few seconds, a few minutes, a few hours to take stock, to take a beat, to take a breath, and then to go forward. Selah moments. The next kind of rest takes us all the way back to Genesis, in fact to the start of Genesis chapter 2. And those of us who know our Bibles know that Genesis 1 is the start of the creation account, where for 6 days God creates the world, the suns, the moon, the stars, the land, the sea, the plants, the birds, the animals, and then people, man and woman, created in his own image. And then Genesis 2 verse 1 says, "Thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their vast array. And by the seventh day God had finished the work that he was doing. So on the seventh day he rested from all of his work." And we get this rest moment again, and this is different to Selah. In this part of the Bible, in Genesis 2:1, the word for rested is Sabat, spelled S-A-B-A-T, but pronounced Sabat. And this is a thought of resting because the job that is being done is complete. It has been accomplished. It is done to the fullest of its nature. It is done to perfection. Everything's been done. All the things have been ticked off the to-do list. Work is completed. And in the knowledge of a job well done, we can pause. And that's what God did. It was a Shabbat moment. And from that, we get the word Sabbath. And that is something that is built into the pattern for life that God creates when he says to us through his word, for 6 days work and then take a seventh day where you rest from your labours. And we concentrate in that day on resting, but also on focusing on God. It is a pattern, it's an idea, it's a blessing to rest from the weekly work, not because we're worn out, not because we're drained, different to Selah, not because we need to take stock of the terrible thing that's happening and remind ourselves about the good things in life, but rather to know that we've done what we can do in our service, in our work. The job has been completed in those 6 days, and now we pause to focus in worship, to focus on being refreshed in teaching and going to church and resting from our labours and spending time alone with God, that weekly pattern to be refreshed, ready for works of service once more in the following week and the following season. Shabbat moments, so vital in our life. Someone used to say that we should divert daily, withdraw weekly, and retreat regularly, and that is such an important thing in the Christian life. And at times, on a weekly basis, as often as we can, we need to look for these Shabbat moments where, just like God, we say we've done what we can do. In our English culture, this happens on a Sunday, so from Monday to Saturday, we've done what we can do this week. We've given it our best. We've ticked all the boxes that we needed to and have tried to, and we've worked hard and we've committed to God. And now in this Sabbath moment, we pause and we rest to be refreshed in worship and praise, ready to go forward again on the Monday, re-energized to give works of service once again. Shabbat moments, moments of real blessing. And then there's this third, and we're only doing 4 of these, so this third type of rest is found in this case in Matthew chapter 11, and this is a verse that you will know very, very well. I'm sure many of you, when Jesus is talking about how the Father is going to be revealed through Jesus the Son, in Matthew 11:28 he says, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." And when we think about rest in the Bible, this is perhaps one of 2 or 3 of the most popular and well-known verses. And in this case, the word that is used for rest is different again. It's different to Selah, it's different to Shabbat. In this case, it's a word that's not quite so easy for me to pronounce. At least it's a word Anapowo, I believe I'm saying that right, and it speaks of a physical rest from being worn out, from being tired. It's the same word that's used in John 4:6 when Jesus stopped at the well because he'd been on a long journey and he was physically exhausted. It's the feeling that we get at the end of a day. You've been out, you've been working, you've been looking after the children, we've been cooking, we've been cleaning, we've been gardening, we've been doing all the things that we want to do that day, and we sit down on the sofa and we collapse and we have our dinner, we watch a bit of television, we put our feet up and we take ourselves off to bed to sleep the sleep of the righteous, to be refreshed. It's a literal physical tiredness, anapowo. And the word, if we split it up, means literally to pause, to cease from the work that is being done and have a time of recovery, to regain physical strength. When you talk about needing rest or being tired, this is the word that comes quite naturally in our English language. But if we go right back to the root of the word, it's linked to the concept in farming of allowing an area of soil to remain fallow for a season after harvest, after it's been worked for a number of years, and to remain in a period of being paused so that the nutrients can be regained, and so that the rain can fall and the land can rest and be ready to be sowed into once more without becoming exhausted and drained of all of its nutrients, so a new crop can come. It's a physical need, and we all, as human beings, the same as birds and animals and fish, we need this balance in life where we work through the day in whatever that means, and then we come to a point in the evening and the night where we stop, we eat, we drink, and we sleep, and that, we hope and trust, gives us the energy we need for the next day. And there's many things in modern life that come against that, of course, and we've all had sleepless nights, and we've all had moments where sleep has been interrupted because it's been too hot or too cold, or there's been something on our mind or other distractions, and that can impact several days and in fact weeks in the future if we don't get enough sleep. And this word anapowo is this literal physical tiredness, or rather it's the rest that we need to recover from that. So we're starting to build these ideas that as humans we need physical rest, anapowo. We also need weekly times where we rest from the distractions of the world and our labours and our jobs and our busy lives, and we turn to God for a day, those Sabat moments, and then those Selah moments where throughout the day at various times we just need to pause in our thoughts and reflect, okay, something's starting to get on top of me. I need to take a beat, take a moment, take a breath, say, okay, count to 10, whatever it is that works for you, and then remind ourselves that God is with us and what we're trying to achieve and why we're doing this, and then go forward again. And that will bring us on to our fourth and final word, our fourth and final kind of rest. And this fourth and final kind of rest, and there are many more of these throughout the Bible, but I think these four are key to just thinking about our balance of life. This fourth word is found in the book of Luke, amongst other places, in chapter 5 verse 16, and those of us who have studied the Bible and know about the life of Christ will know that this verse is one that is repeated in different ways a number of times. It happens in Luke 5 when Jesus calls his first disciples, and he goes out and he begins to healing a man with leprosy. And then Luke 5:16 says, "But Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and he prayed." And particularly in Luke, as Luke the doctor writes about Jesus, we read accounts of the the physical attributes of Jesus. Jesus, the human man and fully God in human form. And perhaps because Luke is a doctor, he tends to reflect a little bit on Jesus' physical needs. We hear about him sleeping, we hear about him eating, and we hear about him withdrawing and going to isolated, lonely, says this verse, solitary places to be alone with the Father and to pray. And that word withdrew is used in the same as one of these rest words. It's probably the harder to pronounce of the words for today. It's the word Hupochoreo, or Hupochoreon, depending on whether it's used in what context. Hupochoreon means to withdraw. The literal part of the root of the word is to vacate down, to have a break, a holiday, a pause in a downward motion, to slip away. It's not about tiredness. It's not about something we put in our calendar on a weekly basis. It's not about taking that pause or that beat just to change our mindset. Rather, it's the intentional discipline of recognizing the need to be alone with God the Father, to pray, to worship, to think, to study, to read, and to be alone with God. Hupochoreo, such a vital and important. So we have these 4 words, and I think the words and disciplines that we can apply to our lives in quite an intentional but so fulfilling way, because we all get tired. We all live in busy, sometimes stressful lives. I heard a statistic quite a number of years ago that if you looked at the average, it was American statistics, the average American church, and asked most of the women of the church how they were feeling at that time, the biggest and most common answer was bored. And if you asked the men of the church how they were feeling, the biggest and most common answer at that time was tired, exhausted. And how many of us have had moments where we don't feel fully fulfilled, and more so where we just feel running out of energy. But the Bible gives us so many answers, those Selah moments where it feels like everything's just getting on top of us for a few seconds. I'm sure everyone has had those moments. The kids are screaming, there's not enough money, the work isn't going as it should do, somebody's said something that's cut you to the quick, you've fallen over the cat, you've fallen out with the missus, the car won't start, it's raining again, your football team's lost. It feels like you're going round in circles, you're wading through treacle. There's Selah moments where we just pause for a moment. Remember what we're doing and trying to achieve. Remember that God is with us. And then going forward with a renewed focus. Those Selah moments, those Sabat moments, a weekly discipline of getting away from the other normal daily routine of life and spending time in worship and prayer and communion and focusing on God without the distractions of everyday life. A vital pattern set out in Genesis and given to us throughout the Old Testament as God put disciplines into the lives of these people who followed him. Pause from work, rest, take some time off and focus on God. Sabat moments. Then Anapowo, this time of a physical need to be restored each night. We are, as human beings, created in such an amazing way. Our bodies are miraculous. They heal themselves, they feed, they provide and create oxygen. The way that blood works, the way that our cells work, the way that our bodies and our muscles rejuvenate is miraculous, but it needs a process of switching off every night to receive 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours of sleep. Children need more of it, adults need a little bit less, teenagers need even more. But we need this process of being regularly refreshed from physical tiredness to be energized. And this final word, Hupochoreo, a time to be alone with God, to feed our spiritual energy, to withdraw, to slip away, to take those moments where we retreat on a regular basis, to be just alone with the Father. That can be physically going to a different place, a cathedral, a church, a holiday, a planned retreat. It could mean going to sitting in your garden. It could be sitting in the car. It could be going to bed 30 minutes earlier, switching off Coronation Street and just reading the Bible instead. But an intentional moment of slipping away from life and being alone with God. Moments of rest. Moments that we need physically, moments that we need mentally and emotionally, moments that we need spiritually. And when we intentionally seek to put these disciplines into our life, moments that restore us and energize us, and that can be a true life force for our physical, emotional and spiritual needs. Please, in your weeks, build in moments of Sabat, those Sabbath moments where we go and worship and spend time with God. Moments that we go to sleep and we find physical restoration. Moments where we withdraw to be alone with God. And moments where we just pause and take a beat. Those Selah, brief pauses and breaths, where we focus again with renewed intention on our God. I trust that this has been, if not completely educational, because I'm sure you've heard some of these ideas before, that may just encourage you a little, maybe give you a few ideas, and more than anything, I hope that it's encouraged you that we have a God who says, come to me through every part of life in every way and I will give you rest. May God truly bless you and may you find rest, because God says through his word, those who rest on him will have their strength renewed. Have a great day and a great week. God bless you and goodbye.